Teo pushed open the door to his apartment with his shoulder, too tired to care about the proper way to do anything. The shift at the orbital docking station had stretched from 8 hours to 14, and every muscle in his body screamed for rest. His hands were still stained with grease from the hyperspace gate repairs, and he could smell the burnt metal on his clothes. The apartment was quiet. That was normal. Velra, his Kenorian maid, was always quiet when she worked. She moved through rooms like a shadow, cleaning and organizing without disturbing anything. To-O had hired her 6 months ago through the Domestic Service Guild, and she had been perfect. Professional, efficient, and most importantly, she never asked questions about the empty picture frames or the locked drawer in his desk. He dropped his bag by the door and kicked off his boots. The living room was spotless as always. The kitchen gleamed. Even the windows looked cleaner than when the apartment was new. Velra earned every credit he paid her. Teo walked toward his bedroom, planning to grab a fresh uniform before hitting the shower. The door was halfway open, and he could see movement inside. He almost called out to let Velra know he was home early, but something made him stop. She was standing at his desk. Her back was to him, and her thin shoulders were shaking. To-O frowned. In 6 months, he had never seen her show any emotion at all. Kenorians were known for being calm and controlled. It was one reason they made such good domestic workers across the galaxy. He pushed the door open wider, and it creaked. Velra spun around, and Teo felt his heart stop. She was crying. Her large eyes, usually a calm silver color, were now streaming with tears that looked almost like liquid crystal. They caught the light as they ran down her pale blue face. Her 4-fingered hands were trembling, and she was holding something small. It took Teo a moment to recognize what it was. The photograph, the one he kept in the locked drawer, the one he thought nobody else knew about. It was a picture of his sister, Hannah. She was smiling in the photo, her hair pulled back in a ponytail, wearing her university sweater. It had been taken 3 months before she died. 3 months before the Frontier Massacre took her and 3,000 other humans away from their families. "What are you doing?" Teo's voice came out harder than he meant it to. That drawer was locked. Velra made a sound that might have been a sob. She looked down at the photograph, then back at Teo. Her hands were shaking so badly that the picture nearly fell. "I am sorry," she whispered in Korean. Her accent was thick, and the words came out broken. "I am so sorry." Teo took a step into the room. His exhaustion was gone now, replaced by something cold and sharp in his chest. "Put it down." Instead, Velra sank to her knees. She placed the photograph carefully on the floor in front of her, then reached up and pulled something from around her neck. It was a translation pendant, a small device that helped species communicate across language barriers. She held it in her palm and spoke into it. "I was there," the pendant translated in a flat, mechanical voice, "5 years ago, at the Hannah colony. I was there when your people died." The words hit Teo like a physical blow. He stared at the alien kneeling on his bedroom floor, holding the picture of his dead sister, and felt the world tilt sideways. "What did you say?" Velra's tears fell faster now. She spoke rapidly into the pendant, her voice breaking. "I was a medical conscript in the Draxian forces. I did not want to be there. None of us did, but we had no choice. The Empire took us from our homes and put weapons in our hands and told us to follow orders or die." Teo's hands clenched into fists. "You killed my sister." "No." Velra shook her head violently. "I did not kill anyone. I was in the medical bay. I tried to help the wounded. But there were so many, too many. And the officers, they would not let us save the humans. They said humans were the enemy. They said we should let them die. So you did." The words tasted like poison in Teo's mouth. You let them die. Yes. Velra's voice was barely a whisper. I let them die. I followed orders. I was afraid. I was a coward, and I have carried that shame every day since. Teo wanted to throw her out. He wanted to scream at her, to rage at her for being part of the machine that killed his sister, but his body would not move. He just stood there, staring at this alien who had cleaned his home for 6 months, who had been so quiet and professional, who had been hiding this terrible secret the entire time. Why are you here? He finally asked. Why did you come to work for me? Velra reached into her pocket and pulled out a small data chip. She held it up with shaking hands. After the war ended, after the Draxian Empire fell, I had access to the military databases. I found the records from that day. I saw the names of the humans who came through the medical bay. Your sister's name was there. Hana Kim, age 19, student. She died on the table while I was in the next room, treating a Draxian soldier who had a broken arm. The cold feeling in Teo's chest spread through his entire body. He could not breathe, could not think. I looked up her family, Velra continued. I found you. I learned where you worked, where you lived. I took this job because I needed to understand. I needed to see what kind of person loses someone they love. I needed to know what I helped destroy. You had no right. Teo's voice was shaking now. You had no right to come into my life, to touch my things, to pretend to be helpful while hiding what you did. I know. Velra lowered her head. I know I had no right. But I also have something else, something important. The data chip contains proof, names and records of the officers who gave the orders, the ones who planned the massacre, the ones who are still free, still living comfortable lives, while thousands of families grieve. She held the chip out toward him. I have been collecting evidence for 2 years. I know it does not bring your sister back. I know it does not fix what I failed to do. But maybe it can give you justice. Maybe it can make sure those who ordered the killing finally pay for their crimes. Teo looked at the chip, then at the alien holding it, then at the photograph of his sister, still lying on the floor between them. His mind was a storm of emotions he could not sort through. Rage, grief, confusion, and underneath it all, something he did not want to acknowledge, but could not ignore. This alien, this enemy, this coward who had let his sister die, was offering him something he had dreamed about for 5 years. A chance for justice. A chance to make the people responsible finally answer for what they did. He reached down slowly and picked up the photograph. Hana's smiling face looked back at him, frozen in a moment before the war, before the pain, before everything changed. Get out, he said quietly. Velra stood up, still holding the data chip. Please, take this. Even if you never want to see me again, take the evidence. Use it. Make them pay. Teo looked at her for a long minute. Then he reached out and took the chip from her hand. Their fingers did not touch. Leave, he said. I need to think. Velra nodded. She walked to the door, moving slowly like she was wounded. At the threshold, she stopped and turned back. I know you have no reason to believe me, she said, but I am truly sorry. Every day, I am sorry. Then she was gone, and Teo was alone in his bedroom, holding a photograph of his dead sister in one hand and a data chip full of secrets in the other. Outside his window, the lights of New Sol Space Colony glittered in the darkness, and somewhere out there, the people who killed Hana were still free. He looked down at the chip. Such a small thing to carry the weight of so much pain. Teo closed his eyes and thought about what came next. Teo did not sleep that night. He sat at his desk with the data chip in front of him, turning it over and over in his hands. The apartment felt different now, like Velra's confession had changed the air itself. Every surface she had cleaned, every object she had touched, felt contaminated by the truth. At dawn, he finally plugged the chip into his computer. The files loaded slowly, thousands of documents in Draxian military code. Teo had learned to read basic Draxian during the war, when knowing your enemy's language could save your life. Now that skill felt like a curse. The first file he opened was a personnel record. Velra's face looked back at him from the screen, younger and more afraid. Her designation was Medical Conscript, Class 3, age at conscription, 17 years old. Reason for service: mandatory draft, Canorian Sector 12.17. She had been 17 when they forced her into the military. Younger than Hannah.T-O closed that file and opened another. This one was a battle report from the Hannah colony. The words were clinical and cold, describing the attack like it was a routine operation. Civilian casualties: acceptable. Resistance: minimal. Mission status: complete. 3,000 people reduced to a single word: acceptable. He kept reading. The reports detailed everything: the planning, the execution, the cleanup afterward. And there, buried in the medical logs, he found Hannah's name. Patient 1847, female, age 19. Multiple injuries. Status: deceased. The words blurred as Teo's eyes filled with tears. He had known she was dead for 5 years, had been to her memorial service, had said goodbye 1,000 times. But seeing it written down in an enemy report made it real in a new and terrible way. A knock on the door made him jump. For a moment, he thought it might be Velra coming back, but the knock was too firm. He wiped his eyes and went to answer it. Di-Young stood in the hallway, holding 2 cups of coffee. His friend looked concerned, the way he always did when Teo went too long without answering messages. "You did not show up for breakfast," Di-Young said, pushing past him into the apartment. "I got worried. I am fine. You look terrible." Di-Young set the coffee down and studied his face. What happened? Teo wanted to lie, but he was too tired. Instead, he told Di-Young everything. About finding Velra with the photograph, about her confession, about the data chip full of evidence. His friend listened without interrupting, his expression growing darker with each detail. When Teo finished, Di-Young was quiet for a long time. He picked up his coffee and drank it slowly, thinking. Finally he spoke. "So what are you going to do?" "I do not know." "You believe her?" "About being forced into service?" Teo thought about the personnel file, about Velra's age, about the tears streaming down her face. "I think so. Yes." Di-Young nodded slowly. The Draxian Empire conscripted millions of people from dozens of species. Most of them did not want to fight. They were just trying to survive. He paused. "But that does not change what happened to our families." "I know. My parents and my brother died in that colony too," Di-Young said quietly. "If I found out someone who was there and then living in my building, working for my neighbor, I do not know what I would do." He looked at Teo. "But I know what I would want to do. I would want to use that evidence to bring down every single person who gave the orders." Teo felt something loosen in his chest. "You think I should work with her?" "I think you should look at what is on that chip. If it really contains proof, if it really has the names of the officers responsible, then we owe it to Hannah and to everyone else to do something with it." Di-Young stood up. "Let me call Nari. She worked in military intelligence during the war. If anyone can verify this data, it is her." 3 hours later, Nari sat at Teo's desk, scrolling through files with the focused intensity she brought to everything. She had lost her entire unit in the final days of the war, and the experience had left her harder, sharper, like steel that had been forged in fire. "This is real," she said finally. These are genuine Draxian military files. Some of them are still classified. Wherever your maid got this, she had high-level access. Can you use it? Teo asked. Maybe, probably, but it would be dangerous. Nari turned to look at him. If we start investigating war criminals, they will notice. Some of these officers are still powerful. They have money and connections. They will not want this information to become public. I do not care about the danger. You should. Nari's voice was sharp. But I understand. I want justice too. We all do. Daeyun leaned forward. So we work together. The three of us. We go through the files, verify the information, and build a case that cannot be ignored. What about Velra? Nari asked. Do we include her? The question hung in the air. Teo thought about the alien who had cleaned his home for 6 months, who had carried her guilt like a weight, who had risked everything to give him this chance. I need to talk to her first. He found Velra in her small apartment in the lower levels of the colony. When she opened the door and saw him standing there, her eyes widened in surprise and fear. I am not here to hurt you, Teo said. I need to talk. Velra stepped aside to let him in. Her apartment was tiny, just one room with a bed, a small kitchen, and a desk covered in papers. Teo recognized some of the documents, more Draxian military reports, more evidence she had been collecting. How long have you been doing this? He asked, gesturing at the papers. Since the war ended. Since I became free. Velra's voice was quiet. I thought if I could gather enough proof, if I could show the galaxy what really happened, maybe it would mean something. Maybe it would help someone. It will help. Teo met her eyes. I looked at the files. I believe you about being conscripted. I believe you did not want to be there. Velra's expression crumbled with relief. Thank you, but I need you to understand something. Teo's voice hardened. My sister is dead. Your guilt does not bring her back. Your apology does not fix anything. The only thing that matters now is making sure the people who ordered the massacre face justice. I understand. I have 2 friends who want to help. We are going to investigate the officers named in these files. We are going to build a case and present it to the Galactic Authority. But we need your help. You know the Draxian military better than any of us. You can read their codes and understand their systems. Velra nodded quickly. I will help. I will do anything. This is not about redemption, Teo said. You cannot earn forgiveness for what happened. But maybe you can help make sure it does not happen again. That is enough. Velra's voice was steady now. That is all I want. Over the next 2 weeks, the 4 of them worked in secret. Teo's apartment became their headquarters, the walls covered in charts and timelines. Daeyun used his skills as a data analyst to decrypt files and cross-reference names. Nari applied her military knowledge to verify chains of command. Velra translated documents and explained Draxian military procedures. And slowly, painfully, a picture emerged. The Frontier Massacre had not been a random act of violence. It had been planned by a group of high-ranking officers who wanted to send a message to humanity. They had chosen the Hana colony specifically because it was a civilian settlement, full of families and students and people who could not fight back. The files contained everything they needed. Orders signed by specific officers. Communications showing premeditation. After-action reports boasting about the body count. It was enough evidence to bring charges, to demand trials, to force the galaxy to remember what had happened, but it also attracted attention. On the 14th day of their investigation, Teo came home to find his apartment door broken open. Someone had ransacked the rooms, throwing furniture and tearing through drawers. His computer was destroyed, the screen shattered. Nari arrived within minutes of his call, her hand on her weapon. This was a warning. They know what we are doing, Taeyong said, looking pale, but Teo smiled grimly. They are too late. I already uploaded copies of everything to 3 separate secure servers. They cannot stop this now. That night, as they worked to clean up the damage, Velra pulled Teo aside. Her expression was worried. There is something else, she said. Something I found in the files, but did not understand at first. Some of the names in the medical logs have a special mark next to them. I thought it was just a filing error, but now I am not sure. What kind of mark? Velra pulled up a document on her portable screen. This symbol. It appears next to 47 human names, including your sister's. In Draxian, this mark means transferred. Teo felt his heart start to pound. Transferred where? I do not know. The files do not say. But if they were transferred, it means they were not killed immediately. It means they were taken somewhere else. The room seemed to tilt. Are you saying Hannah might be alive? I am saying we need to investigate further. Velra's voice was careful. I am saying there might be more to this story than we know. Teo looked at his friends, at the broken apartment, at the years of grief that had shaped his life. And he thought about the impossible possibility that everything he believed might be wrong. Then we keep digging, he said. We find out what that mark means. We follow every lead, even if it is dangerous? Nari asked, especially if it is dangerous. Because if there was even the smallest chance that Hana was still alive somewhere in the galaxy, then Teo would move every star to find her. The symbol haunted Teo's dreams. Every night, he saw it glowing in the darkness, that strange Draxian mark that might mean his sister was alive. Every morning, he woke up afraid to hope and more afraid not to. Velra worked 18-hour days, combing through files and cross-referencing records. She had stopped being Teo's maid and had become something else entirely. A partner, an ally, someone whose guilt had transformed into purpose. She moved into Daeyoung's spare room so they could work around the clock, and slowly, the distance between her and the humans began to shrink. Nari was the first to start, treating Velra like a person instead of a necessary evil. On the 5th day of their intensified search, she brought coffee for everyone, including a cup prepared the way Kenorians liked it, with a mineral supplement dissolved in the liquid. Velra had looked at the cup for a long moment, then up at Nari, then whispered thank you in a voice thick with emotion. We are a team now, Nari had said simply. Teams take care of each other. Daeyoung took longer to warm up, but eventually his natural curiosity overcame his resentment. He started asking Velra questions about Kenorian culture, about her life before the war, about the homeworld she could never return to. She answered carefully at first, then with more openness as she realized he was genuinely interested. My people are not warriors, she explained one evening as they worked. We are builders and caretakers. When the Draxian Empire came to our world, we had no army to fight them. They just took what they wanted. Took us. How many of your people were conscripted? Daeyoung asked. Millions. Across dozens of colony worlds. Most of us were assigned to support roles because we were not aggressive enough for combat. Medical, maintenance, administration. We kept their war machine running, even though we hated it. Teo listened from across the room. He was beginning to understand that the war had destroyed more than just human lives. It had shattered entire civilizations, conscripting peaceful species and forcing them to become accomplices in atrocities they never wanted to commit. It did not make him forgive Velra, but it helped him understand her. The breakthrough came on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. Velra sat up suddenly from her computer, her eyes wide. I found him, she said. The commander who marked those 47 names. His name is Korvax, and according to this file, he was executed for treason 6 months after the massacre. Executed for what? Nari asked, moving to look over her shoulder. For refusing orders. For evacuating enemy civilians without authorization. Velra scrolled through the document. But look at this. The execution report was filed by Officer Grenix, who is one of the war criminals we have been investigating. And the report says Korvax's body was never recovered. Teo felt electricity run down his spine. They did not kill him. They claimed they did, but they lost him, or he escaped. Nari was reading quickly now. If he evacuated 47 humans against orders, and if he survived, he might still have them. He might be hiding somewhere with the people he saved. Where? De Jung demanded. Where would a Draxian trader hide with a group of human refugees? Velra pulled up a star map. After the war, the neutral zones became flooded with refugees. Billions of displaced people, all trying to survive. There are dozens of unofficial settlements in the fringe territories, places where no government has authority. Her finger traced a path through the map. If I were Korvax, if I wanted to hide, I would go here. The Razor Cluster. It is an asteroid field so dense that most ships cannot navigate it safely. Perfect for staying hidden. That is a 3-week journey from here, Nari said. And the fringe territories are dangerous. No law, no protection. If the war criminals figure out where we are going, they could send mercenaries after us. Then we do not tell anyone where we are going. Teo stood up, his decision made. We take a small ship, just the 4 of us. We travel quietly, and we find this Korvax and get answers. You are talking about abandoning our jobs, our lives here, to chase a possibility, De-Jung said. But his eyes were bright with the same desperate hope that Teo felt. We might find nothing, or we might find my sister. Teo looked at each of them. I know I am asking a lot. I know this is risky. If any of you want to stay behind, I understand. I am coming, Velra said immediately. I know Draxian culture and language. You will need me. I lost everyone I loved in the war, Nari said. If there is a chance to save even one person, I want to be part of it. De-Jung sighed. My job is boring anyway. Let us go find your sister. They spent a week preparing. Nari used her military contacts to acquire a small transport vessel that had been decommissioned, a beat-up ship called the Steady Hand that had seen better days. Teo spent 3 days in the engine room, repairing and upgrading systems, pushing his engineering skills to their limit. This ship will not win any races, he told the others as they loaded supplies. But it will get us there and back, and it has enough shielding to handle the asteroid field. Assuming we do not get blown up by pirates first, De-Jung muttered. Checking their food supplies for the 3rd time, they left New Sol Colony on a Thursday morning, filing a flight plan that claimed they were doing survey work in an empty sector. No one questioned it. People lied about their destinations all the time in the outer colonies. The first week of travel was tense. Everyone jumped at strange sounds, worried that they were being followed. But the emptiness of space stretched around them, vast and indifferent, and slowly they began to relax into the journey. Living in close quarters changed their dynamic. Velra taught them Kinorian meditation techniques to deal with stress. Nari ran combat drills, insisting everyone learn basic self-defense. De-Jung cooked meals that mixed human and alien ingredients, creating strange but surprisingly good combinations. And Teo kept the ship running, spending hours in the engine room where the familiar work helped calm his racing thoughts. On the 9th day, they talked about Hanadat. It started when Velra asked what she had been like. Teo found himself telling stories he had not shared in years. About how Hana had wanted to be a teacher, how she had loved old Earth music, how she had always been able to make him laugh, even on his worst days. "She sounds wonderful," Valera said softly. She was. Teo looked at the alien sitting across from him. "Do you have family? Someone you lost?" "A brother. His name was Torin. He was conscripted the same day I was, but they sent him to a combat unit. He died in the second year of the war." Valera's voice was steady, but her eyes were distant. "I think about him every day. I wonder if he was afraid at the end. If he thought about home." "I am sorry," Teo said, and meant it. "We have all lost people," Nari said. "The war did not care who it destroyed. Humans, Kenorians, even Draxians who did not want to fight. We all bled the same." The conversation shifted then, becoming less about their individual grief and more about what came after. About how to build something better from the ruins. About how to make sure the next generation did not have to suffer the same losses. "Humans have something special," Valera said thoughtfully. "I have studied your history, your culture. You have this idea that things can be better, that people can change, that even enemies can become allies. Most species do not think that way." "What do other species think?" Dae-Jung asked. "They think in terms of victory or submission. You win or you lose. You dominate or you are dominated. But humans, you have this strange belief in cooperation, in finding a middle path. It drives other species crazy because they do not understand it." "It does not always work," Nari said quietly. "Sometimes people cannot be reasoned with." "But you try anyway," Valera insisted. "Even now, after everything the Draxian Empire did to you, you are working with me, a former enemy, because you believe in justice more than revenge. That is unusual. That is powerful." Teo thought about that as the stars streaked past outside the window. Maybe Valera was right. Maybe there was something uniquely human about the way they approached conflict. Not because they were better than other species, but because they refused to accept that hatred was the only option. On the 15th day, the ship's sensors picked up something unusual. A distress signal, faint and old, broadcasting from an uncharted asteroid. "Should we investigate?" Dae-Jung asked. "We do not have time for side missions," Nari said, but Teo was already changing course. "If someone needs help, we help them." That is what Hana would have done. They found a crashed shuttle on the asteroid's surface, its hull breached and its systems dead. Inside were 3 beings from different species, all suffering from dehydration and oxygen deprivation. The humans loaded them onto the steady hand and provided medical care. One of them, a trader from a species called the Vex, asked why they had stopped to help strangers. "Because it is the right thing to do," Teo said simply. The Vex looked at him with all 4 of its eyes. "Your species is strange, but I am grateful for your strangeness." They dropped the rescued beings at the nearest outpost and continued on their way. The delay cost them 2 days, but somehow it felt worth it. It reminded Teo why he was doing this, not just for Hana, but for everyone who had been hurt by the war. On the 19th day, they reached the Razor Cluster. The asteroid field stretched before them like a wall of spinning rock and ice, so dense that their sensors could barely penetrate it. "This is going to be rough," Teo said, taking the controls. "Everyone strap in." He piloted them into the field, using every trick he knew to navigate the deadly maze. Asteroids loomed and spun, their surfaces gleaming with reflected starlight. The ship shuddered and groaned as debris pinged off the shields. "There," Valera said suddenly, pointing at her screen. "I am detecting a power signature deep in the field. Something artificial. That is where we are going." Teo pushed the ship harder, threading between asteroids. His hands steady on the controls dot, it took 3 hours to reach the source of the signal. 3 hours of intense concentration and near misses. But finally, they broke through into a clear pocket in the center of the field. And there, built into the largest asteroid, was a structure. Lights glowed from windows carved into stone. Docking bays were visible along the surface. Ships of various sizes and designs were moored to the structure like fish around a reef. Someone is living here, Nari breathed. A whole community. A voice crackled over their com system, speaking in Korean. Unknown vessel, this is the sanctuary. State your business. T.O.'s heart was pounding so hard, he thought it might break his ribs. My name is Tae-o Kim. I am looking for someone. Her name is Hana. Hana Kim. She was at the Frontier Massacre 5 years ago. Please, if she is there, I need to know. There was a long silence. Then the voice came back, and it was different now, softer, full of emotion. Tae-o, is it really you? He knew that voice. He knew it better than his own. Tears streamed down his face as he gripped the com. Hana? Oh gods, Hana, is that you? It is me. His sister was crying too. He could hear it through the speakers. It is me. I am alive. I am here. The ship erupted in sound as everyone started talking at once, but Tae-o heard none of it. All he could hear was his sister's voice, alive and real, speaking to him from the impossible place where hope had been hiding all along. The docking bay smelled like machine oil and recycled air, but to Tae-o, it was the most beautiful place in the universe. His hands shook as he unsealed the hatch. His friends closed behind him. A crowd had gathered to watch the new arrivals, faces from a dozen different species, staring at them with curiosity and caution. Then the crowd parted, and she was there. Hana looked older. Her hair was shorter, cut to her shoulders, and she wore clothes made from repaired scraps of different fabrics. She had a scar running along her left arm, and she stood with the slight stiffness of someone who had been injured and healed imperfectly. But her eyes were the same, dark and warm, and they filled with tears the moment she saw him. Tae-o, she whispered. He ran to her. They crashed together in the middle of the docking bay, holding each other so tightly it hurt. Tae-o was sobbing, not caring who saw, not caring about anything except the fact that his sister was alive and solid and real in his arms. I thought you were dead, he said into her hair. I thought I lost you forever. I thought I would never see you again. Hana pulled back to look at his face, touching his cheek like she needed to confirm he was real. How did you find me? How is this possible? It is a long story. Tae-o became aware of the others watching, waiting. He stepped back, but kept holding Hana's hand, afraid she would disappear if he let go. These are my friends. Nari, Daeyoung, and Velra. They helped me find you. Hana's eyes widened when she saw Velra. You are Kenorian. I am. Velra's voice was quiet, respectful. I was a conscript during the war. I was at the massacre. I am deeply sorry for what my people failed to prevent. But Hana surprised everyone by stepping forward and taking Velra's hands. You have nothing to apologize for. We have several Kenorian refugees here. I know what the Empire did to your people. The fact that you helped my brother find me means everything. A tall figure pushed through the crowd, a Draxian with scarred features and kind eyes. He wore simple clothes, nothing like military uniforms, but he carried himself with authority. You must be Tae-o, he said in accented Korean. I am Korvax. Welcome to the sanctuary. Tae-o stared at the alien who had saved his sister's life, the alien who had defied orders and become a traitor to his own empire. Thank you for saving her, for keeping her safe. Thank you for raising someone worth saving. Korvax smiled. Come, we have much to discuss, and I suspect you have many questions. They followed Korvax and Hana through corridors carved from asteroid rock, the walls smooth and reinforced with metal plating. Other beings moved through the passages, humans and aliens working together, children of mixed species playing in side chambers. It looked like a community, a real functioning society built into this hidden place. Korvax led them to a large common room with windows overlooking the asteroid field. They sat at a table, and Hannah began to tell her story. "I remember the attack," she said quietly. "The bombs, the screaming, the smoke. I was hurt badly. I woke up in a medical bay on a Draxian ship, and I thought I was going to be tortured or killed. But Korvax came to see me. He told me he had evacuated everyone he could find alive, 47 of us, and that he was taking us somewhere safe." "Why did you do it?" Nari asked Korvax directly. "Why risk everything for enemy civilians?" "Because they were not enemies," Korvax said. "They were students and shopkeepers and parents. They were people who had done nothing except exist in the wrong place. I looked at them and saw what my empire had become, and I could not be part of it anymore." "The military classified you as a traitor," Dae-Jung said. "They claimed you were executed. They tried." Korvax gestured at his scars. "I survived long enough to reach the fringe territories. I found this asteroid and began building a shelter. At first, it was just me and the 47 humans. Then other refugees started finding us. People who had nowhere else to go, who did not fit into the post-war world. How many are here now?" Velra asked. 832, Hannah answered. "From 19 different species. We have humans, Kenorians, Draxians, Vex, and others. All refugees, all trying to build new lives." Tio looked at his sister with new eyes. She spoke with confidence, with authority. "What is your role here?" "I help coordinate refugee services. Medical care, food distribution, education for the children. Korvax taught me administration, and I taught others human organizational methods. We have a functioning council now, representatives from each species making decisions together." "That must be complicated," Nari said. "Different species have different needs, different ways of thinking. It is very complicated." Hannah smiled. "But we make it work. Humans have a gift for finding middle ground, for creating systems that can accommodate different perspectives. The other species here have learned from that approach, and it has made us stronger." Over the next few hours, Hannah showed them around the sanctuary. They saw the hydroponic gardens where food was grown, the schools where children learned in multiple languages, a medical bay where doctors from different species shared knowledge. They met survivors and refugees, each with their own story of loss and hope. One human woman named Bo-Ora approached them in the commons. She had been a teacher at the Hana colony, and she remembered Teo from family events before the war. "Your sister saved my life," Bo-Ora said. "Not during the attack, but after. When we first got here, I was drowning in grief. I did not want to live. But Hana refused to let me give up. She helped me start teaching again, working with the refugee children. She gave me purpose. She always knew how to help people," Teo said, looking at Hana with pride. That night, they sat together in Hana's small quarters, just the two of them, catching up on 5 years of life. Teo told her about his work, about the grief that had defined his days, about finding Velra and learning the truth. Hana told him about the sanctuary, about learning to live again, about building something new from the ashes of trauma. "Do you ever think about coming back?" Tego asked. "To human space? To a normal life?" "This is my normal life now." Hana looked out her window at the stars. "These people need me. The sanctuary works because we all contribute, because we all believe in something better. I cannot abandon that. Then I will stay too." Hana shook her head. You have a life out there. Friends, a job, a future. You do not need to give that up. You are my family, T.O. said firmly. Where you are is where I need to be. Before Hana could respond, alarms started blaring through the sanctuary. Red lights flashed in the corridors, and people began running to designated stations. Korvax's voice came over the intercom, speaking in multiple languages. Attention all residents. Unknown vessels approaching the sanctuary. Multiple signatures. This is not a drill. All defensive positions, report immediately. Teo and Hana ran to the command center, where Korvax stood at a monitoring station with Narai and several other coordinators. On the screens, they could see 5 ships moving through the asteroid field, their movements coordinated and purposeful. Mercenaries, Nari said grimly. Military-grade weapons and shields. Someone sent them here. The war criminals, Velra said, her face pale. They must have been tracking us. They know what we found. Dae-Yoon was working at a secondary console, pulling up data. Those are Grenix's ships. The officer who filed Korvax's execution report. He knows the truth is about to come out, and he wants to eliminate all the witnesses. We have to evacuate, someone said. There is no time, Korvax replied, and nowhere to go. They will hunt us down no matter where we run. Then we fight, Hana said. Everyone turned to look at her. She stood straight, her voice clear and certain. We have 800 people here who survived war and loss and built something beautiful. We are not going to let them destroy it. We defend the sanctuary. We do not have military weapons, one of the coordinators protested. We have old ships and basic defenses. They will destroy us, and we do not fight like soldiers. Teo moved to the navigation console, his mind already working through possibilities. We fight like engineers. We use what we have, the asteroids, the field, the sanctuary itself. We turn our weakness into strength. Nari understood immediately. You want to use the asteroid field as a weapon. Exactly. Teo pulled up a 3-dimensional map of the surrounding space. These mercenaries are using military tactics, expecting a conventional defense. But we can manipulate the field, create debris clouds, use electromagnetic pulses to disrupt their navigation. We make it impossible for them to get close. Korvax looked at the plan taking shape on the screens. It is risky. If we move the wrong asteroids, we could destroy the sanctuary ourselves. If we do nothing, the mercenaries will definitely destroy us. Teo met his eyes. We have to try. Then we try. Korvax turned to his people. All pilots to their ships. Engineering teams to the field generators. Medical bay, prepare for possible casualties. We defend our home. The sanctuary erupted into organized chaos as people moved to their positions. Teo took command of the engineering team, directing them to set up field generators on key asteroids. Nari coordinated the defensive ships, creating patterns that would confuse rather than confront. Ga-Young hacked into the approaching ships' communication networks, planting false data and creating interference. And Velra, using her knowledge of Draxian military protocols, predicted their attack patterns and helped position defenses where they would be most effective. Hana stood at Korvax's side in the command center, coordinating between teams, keeping everyone focused. Teo watched her through the monitors and felt fierce pride. This was who his sister had become, a leader, a protector, someone who had taken her pain and transformed it into strength. The mercenary ships entered the field, moving in formation. Teo waited until they were committed to their approach, then activated the first set of field generators. Magnetic pulses shot through the asteroids, causing them to shift trajectory. Rocks that had been stable for years suddenly moved, creating a cascade effect. the lead mercenary ship had to break formation, dodging asteroids that appeared in their path. The others scattered, their perfect military precision disrupted by the chaos. "Now," Narari commanded, and the sanctuary ships launched from hidden positions, small and fast, darting between rocks. They did not try to fight directly. Instead, they herded the mercenaries deeper into the field, into zones where Teo had prepared more traps. Young's false data made the mercenaries think they had clear paths. But those paths led into debris clouds and electromagnetic interference. Their advanced weapons became useless when they could not lock onto target's dot, and through it all, Velra fed them information. "They will regroup here," she would say, pointing at the map. "Their commander thinks in patterns. He will try to establish a perimeter." Every prediction was accurate. The mercenaries moved exactly as she said they would, and each time the sanctuary was ready. The battle lasted 6 hours. 6 hours of constant adjustment and adaptation. 6 hours of turning disadvantages into advantages. 6 hours of proving that intelligence and cooperation could overcome superior firepower. Finally, a new signature appeared on the sensors. Large ships, official markings. The Galactic Authority peacekeepers had arrived. Alerted by the evidence Teo's team had transmitted before leaving New Sol Colony, the mercenary ships tried to flee, but the peacekeepers surrounded them. Weapons were powered down. Hulls were breached. And one by one, the war criminals who had thought themselves untouchable were taken into custody. In the command center. Exhausted people celebrated. Hana hugged Teo tightly, both of them shaking with relief and adrenaline. "We did it," she whispered. "We actually did it. You did it." Teo pulled back to look at her. "You and everyone here. You built something worth defending, and you defended it." Korvax placed a hand on both their shoulders. "The galaxy will know the truth now. About the massacre, about the sanctuary, about what is possible when people refuse to be defined by hatred." Through the windows, they could see the Galactic Authority ships establishing a protective perimeter. The sanctuary was safe. The survivors were safe. And for the first time in 5 years, justice seemed possible. Thought about the photograph that Velra had held in her hands, the moment that had started this entire journey. That photograph had represented loss, but now it represented something else. Hope, resilience, the human ability to find each other even in the darkest places and build light together. His sister was alive. Justice was coming. And the sanctuary, this impossible community built by refugees and dreamers, would continue to grow. Everything had changed, but the most important change was simple. They had hope again. And hope, Teo was learning, was the most powerful weapon humans possessed. The Galactic Authority peacekeepers stayed for 3 weeks, documenting everything. They interviewed survivors, collected evidence, and marveled at what they found in the sanctuary. Officers from 5 different species walked through the corridors, seeing humans and former enemies living together, working together, building something that should not have been possible. Commander Sela, a veteran peacekeeper from the Torvin species, spoke with Teo on the 5th day of their presence. "In 30 years of service, I have seen many refugee settlements," she said, her translator rendering her clicks and whistles into Korean. "Most are places of despair. People just surviving, waiting to die or move on. But this place is different. This place is alive. Because everyone here chose to be alive," Teo replied. "They chose to build instead of just survive." "Human philosophy," Sila observed. "We are seeing more of it spreading through the galaxy. This idea that circumstances do not define outcome, that choice matters more than fate. It is making other species uncomfortable. Why uncomfortable? Because it demands more from people. It is easier to accept defeat than to fight for hope. Silo looked at him carefully. What you and your friends did, tracking down war criminals while protecting refugees, using intelligence instead of force. That is very human. Very frustrating to those who prefer simple solutions. The trials began 2 months later. The evidence that Velra had collected, combined with testimony from sanctuary survivors, built an unshakable case. 18 high-ranking Draxian officers faced charges of war crimes, conspiracy, and genocide. The trials were broadcast across the galaxy, and for the first time, the full truth of the Frontier Massacre became public knowledge. Teo attended every session. Hannah sat beside him, and Velra sat on his other side. When prosecutors presented evidence of the medical logs, of the 47 prisoners who were supposed to die but lived instead, the courtroom fell silent. These officers ordered the death of every human in that colony, the prosecutor said. But one Draxian commander refused. Korvax saw people, not enemies. He saved 47 lives that day, and in doing so, he planted the seed that became the sanctuary. Today, 832 beings live because one person chose compassion over orders. The verdicts came down unanimously. Guilty on all charges. The sentences were long, measured in decades. Justice had finally arrived, slow and imperfect. But real. After the final verdict, Teo met with the prosecutor, a human woman named Yoon-ji, who had fought for years to bring war criminals to justice. This case will change things, she told him. Not just for the massacre victims, but for refugees everywhere. The sanctuary proves that restorative justice works, that former enemies can become allies. We are already seeing other settlements adopt your model. It was not my model, Teo said. It was Hana's and Korvax's and 800 other people who refused to let trauma define them, then give them credit. Yoon-ji smiled, but also accept that you played your part. You could have let hatred consume you when you discovered the truth about Velra. Instead, you chose to work with her. That choice saved your sister and changed the course of post-war reconstruction. Teo thought about that conversation later, sitting in the sanctuary's observation deck with his friends. They had all stayed, finding roles in the community. Nari trained security forces, teaching defensive strategies that prioritized protection over aggression. Dae-Jung managed data systems, connecting the sanctuary with legitimate trade networks and information exchanges. Velra worked in the medical bay, using her skills to help refugees deal with trauma and loss, and Tayao had become the chief engineer, maintaining the systems that kept the sanctuary functioning and helping design expansions as more refugees arrived. We are becoming famous, Dae-Jung said, reading news reports on his tablet. There are articles about the sanctuary in 30 different languages. People are calling it a miracle. It is not a miracle, Hana said, joining them with mugs of tea. It is hard work and cooperation. It is people choosing to trust each other, even when trust seems impossible. That sounds like a miracle to most species, Velra said quietly. The ability to forgive without forgetting, to work with former enemies, to build community from broken pieces. These are things humans do naturally that others must learn. You learned, Nari pointed out. You went from a frightened conscript to someone who risks everything for justice. That is not small. Velra's eyes shimmered with emotion. I learned from watching all of you. From seeing Teo choose investigation over revenge. From seeing Hana turn trauma into service. From seeing how humans respond to the worst circumstances by creating the best communities. A soft chime indicated an incoming transmission. Teo activated the display, and Commander Sila's face appeared. I have news, she said. The Galactic Council has officially recognized the sanctuary as a protected refugee settlement. You will receive funding, resources, and legal status. More importantly, They want to study your model for implementation in other post-conflict zones. Hannah leaned forward. What does that mean exactly? It means humans have introduced a new concept to galactic politics, Sela explained. Restorative justice communities. Places where victims and perpetrators can work together toward healing instead of just punishment. The Council has never seen anything like it succeed before. Because humans are strange, Dae-Young said with a grin. Because humans are visionary, Sela corrected. You see possibilities where others see only problems. You build bridges where others build walls. It is infuriating and inspiring in equal measure. After the call ended, they sat in comfortable silence, watching the asteroid field spin slowly beyond the windows. More ships were arriving now, carrying supplies and new refugees, carrying hope to this hidden place that had become a beacon. Do you ever think about that day? Hannah asked quietly. When you found Velra with my photograph. Every day, Teo admitted. What do you think when you remember it? Teo looked at Velra, who watched him with cautious hope. Then he looked at his sister, alive and strong. Then at his friends, this unlikely family built from grief and choice. I think about how close I came to letting anger destroy everything, he said slowly. If I had thrown Velra out that day, if I had refused to listen, I would have lost you forever. I would never have found this place or these people. I would have stayed trapped in my grief, never knowing that something better was possible. So what changed everything? Dae-Young asked. Was it finding the photograph? Learning the truth? Coming here? No. Teo shook his head. What changed everything was choosing to believe that even the worst circumstances can lead somewhere good. That even people who hurt us can become allies. That justice matters more than revenge, and hope matters more than hate. Very human, Velra said softly. Very true, Teo replied. The years passed, and the sanctuary grew. More refugees arrived, drawn by stories of the place where species worked together, where trauma did not define identity, where former enemies built new lives side by side. The Galactic Council established 6 other settlements using the sanctuary model, each one a testament to human principles of restorative justice and community building. Teo and Hannah's parents visited eventually. Traveling from Earth to see the daughter they thought they had lost. The reunion was tearful and joyful, and afterward their mother pulled Teo aside. You brought her back to us, she said, crying. You refused to give up, even when everyone else accepted that she was gone. That is the most important thing anyone has ever done. But Teo knew it was more than that. He had not just brought Hannah back. He had helped create something that would outlast them all. A proof that humans could transform their darkest moments into light for others. 5 years after the trials, the sanctuary held a memorial ceremony. They had built a wall in the main commons, a smooth surface of polished stone where names were inscribed. On one side were the names of those who died in the Frontier Massacre, 3,000 lives lost to violence and hatred. On the other side were the names of those who survived and those who found refuge afterward, a growing list that now numbered over 2,000. Between the 2 walls stood a third, smaller monument. It held a single image, a photograph that Velra had found in a locked drawer 5 years earlier. Hannah's face smiled out from the frame, young and hopeful. Frozen in a moment, before the war dot below the photograph, was an inscription in multiple languages. To-O had written it himself. This photograph represents what we lost and what we found. It reminds us that hope survives even in the darkest places, that compassion can bloom even in ruins, and that every person contains the power to change everything through simple acts of courage and choice. We remember the dead by honoring the living. We heal the past by building a better future. We are the sanctuary, and we choose to be more than our wounds. Hundreds of beings gathered for the ceremony, humans and aliens standing shoulder to shoulder. Korvac spoke about the day he decided to save the 47, about how one choice to see people, as people had led to all of this. Hana spoke about her journey from victim to survivor to leader. Nari talked about learning that strength came in many forms, not just combat. Dae-Young explained how data and evidence could be weapons for Justice Dot and Valera. Standing before the memorial with tears streaming down her face, spoke about guilt and redemption, and the human capacity to teach forgiveness, even to those who thought they were beyond. I walked into Teo's home 5 years ago, carrying a secret eye. Thought would destroy everything, she said. But what I held in my hands was not destruction. It was a key to truth, to justice, to finding what we all thought was lost. Humans taught me that facing the truth, no matter how painful, is always better than living with lies. They taught me that being part of something greater than yourself is how you heal. They taught me that the future does not have to repeat the past. When the ceremony ended, people did not rush away. They stayed, talking and sharing stories, building connections. Children from different species played together in the corridors. Adults planned new projects and discussed expanding the hydroponic gardens. Life continued, vibrant and messy, and beautiful Teo stood at the memorial wall, looking at Hana's photograph. Velra approached and stood beside him silently. "Do you forgive me?" she asked after a long moment. "For what I failed to do? For letting your sister nearly die?" Teo considered the question carefully. "Forgiveness is complicated. I do not forgive the war or the people who started it, or the circumstances that put you in that medical bay. But I do not blame you for being a victim of those circumstances. You were a child forced into an evil system, and you did the best you could. That is not the same as forgiveness." "No," Teo agreed. "But it is something better. It is understanding. It is accepting that people are complex, that situations are complex, and that we can work together even when we carry pain. You helped me find my sister. You gave me back my family. That matters more than forgiveness." Velra nodded slowly. "I can live with that." They stood together, looking at the three walls, at the names of the lost and the found and the growing community that had become home. "You know what is strange?" Teo said. "If none of the bad things had happened, if there was no war, no massacre, no forced conscription, we never would have met. This place would not exist. All these people would never have come together. Are you saying you are glad it happened?" "No, never. I would give anything to have those 3,000 people back, to spare everyone the trauma and loss." Tego paused. "But I'm glad we found a way to transform the tragedy into something meaningful. I am glad we chose to build instead of destroy." Hannah joined them, slipping her arms around both of them. "That is what humans do," she said simply. "We survive. We adapt. We build community from ashes. It is our superpower." "It is annoying," Belra said, but she was smiling. "You make it look easy when it is the hardest thing in the universe." "It is easy because we do it together," Teo replied. "No one person can change everything. But a group of people who refuse to give up, who keep choosing hope, who work together even when it is hard, that can change the galaxy." The three of them stood there for a long time, looking at the memorial walls, at the evidence of loss and survival and stubborn human hope. Behind them, the sanctuary buzzed with life. 800 voices speaking in dozens of languages, 800 stories intersecting, 800 futures being built one day at a time. And on the wall, Hannah's photograph smiled out at them all, frozen in that moment before the war, but now representing something new. Not what was lost, but what was found. Not an ending, but a beginning. The photograph that changed everything had become a symbol of the most important human truth, that no matter how dark the circumstances, no matter how deep the wounds, no matter how impossible the situation seems, there is always a choice: to hate or to hope, to destroy or to build, to let trauma define you or to transform it into strength. Humans, against all logic and reason, choose transformation. They choose hope. They choose to believe that tomorrow can be better than today, and they work to make that belief real. It is infuriating. It is inspiring. It is what makes them human, and it is what changed everything.